The Philadelphia Phillies hired Joe Girardi as their new manager today, a few weeks after deciding to fire Gabe Kapler, who they'd been studying for a few months. And John Middleton, the owner of the Philadelphia Phillies, clearly wanted to pull the trigger on that firing. He was the one kind of behind the scenes leading the effort as Andy MacPhail and the general manager Matt Clintock had to hold a press conference with him. It appears the general manager was defending Gabe Kapler and his style of management, as well as committing to the future of the Philadelphia Phillies. John Middleton, very involved as an owner, was ready to move on. John Middleton, obviously, they spent big in the last offseason, committing $500 million to the future of the Philadelphia Phillies and trying to rebuild this team and get into a win mode quicker than any other team in history. And there are some signs that that could happen. Of course, at the deadline, they weren't out of the wild card hunt. They're right in that for that second wild card. They don't make any moves. They weren't willing to sort of move any big pieces. And frankly, they probably needed a few more pieces to really compete deep into the playoffs. And now, they end the season 500. They haven't had a winning record in many years. In fact, 2011, they won 102 games, and since then, they really haven't had a successful season. And so this is where the pressure's there. And Joe Girardi comes in. He knows a big media market. He can deal bullpens and maybe not. He kind of toes the line between analytics and sort of an old way of managing. But I don't think that Gabe Kapler's reign can be viewed as an indictment on analytics. Every team has an analytics department. It is true that Gabe Kapler and that management structure was heavier on that than a lot of teams, and it was an interesting experiment. But the Philadelphia Phillies record the last 2 years cannot just be thrown on Gabe Kapler. The roster is a bigger part of it, and obviously the management and ownership has to take responsibility at the end of the day. But Gabe Kapler took it like a champ. He took the firing like a champ, and I wish him the best moving forward. But Joe Girardi now comes into Philadelphia. We will see what other moves the Philadelphia Phillies make. Their payroll is projected to reach around 150 with just sort of who we think will get arbitration raises and the current contracts. But they do have some money to work with below that luxury tax if they do want to be a bigger force in the next season. Are they willing to trade some of their prospects? They weren't willing to do so at the trade deadline, so probably unlikely there, but they could make a splash in the free agent market. And with Joe Girardi, who has experience winning, who actually was there managing the Yankees when they beat the Philadelphia Phillies in the World Series, has a great winning record. Even when he was managing the Miami Marlins for a year, he took a team they performed a lot better than they were supposed to. How about that? And so he has experience winning. He has experience with media in a tough media environment. And really this decision will be also viewed from the ownership stance. I mean, John Middleton is way out front. He was out front of the Gabe Kapler. He's out front here. It is more and more being viewed that he is sort of leading the charge here, despite the general manager defending Gabe Kapler. John Middleton is an incredibly involved owner. So depending on how this year goes, he'll have to continue to be a public face on this franchise. But it is an interesting move here. I think probably a good one for the Philadelphia Phillies. Joe Girardi combines that experience, obviously is a smart guy and can get the best out of his players and has that media experience. But again, it's still kind of too early to tell what type of season the Philadelphia Phillies are going to have. They have a lot of talent. They have a lot of potential for sure. They're probably a few pieces away from really competing or going deep into the playoffs, but they want to get there really, really quick. So depending on how they use their remaining payroll and what they have already going for them, their player evaluation and trying to groom some top prospects, which they need more of, frankly, but they'll have some top draft picks. It will be interesting to see how they recover, how they rebound, and can they make it to the playoffs or at least get to that wild card game and give themselves a chance in the coming year. But either way, we know that Joe Girardi will be the next manager of the Philadelphia Phillies, which should be probably a relief to some fans, some stability and experience there. But again, this is not an indictment of Gabe Kapler. I think he did a pretty good job with what he was dealt with, and it should not be viewed as an indictment on a style of management over another. There's more elements at play than just sort of being analytics minded, which every team is, every successful team is, or not. It gets a little messier there. So that said, I wish the best for Joe Girardi, Philadelphia Phillies, and curious to see what they do next. I am curious to hear your thoughts. Was Joe Girardi the right person for the job? There are lots of people out there available interviewing for managerial positions. What do you expect? And what's next for the Philadelphia Phillies? Comment below. Thanks.